Hi, Becky. Hi, Sue.
Hi, Stuart.
Oh, you're right. Oh, that's good. I was just thinking, are my speakers working or not? Good.
No, I was on mute, so I just unmute myself.
Okay. You all okay?
Yes, very well, thank you. You?
Good. Yeah, all good, thanks.
Good.
Nice sunny day, so yeah, can't be bad.
Beautiful, isn't it?
Yeah, lovely. I think we'll just give it a few minutes to get everyone
Yeah, of course.
joining.
Okay.
I'll just check there's no one on the group struggling.
Okay, thank you. Give it another kind of 30 seconds, a minute, and then we'll get started, I think.
Okay, cool.
Thank you, Becky. Kate, did you mean to raise your hand? You got a question?
Okay, should we get started? Good morning, everybody. Hope you're all well. Lovely to see so many of you joining us this morning. We are very excited to be able to introduce you to Stuart Murray, who is our social media consultant who's going to be working with us for the spring season. So we're really, really excited about our new partnership with Stuart. And this is going to be the first of 4 sessions that he's going to be running for us over the season. So the first session is maybe kind of laying some foundations, some information perhaps you may have heard before, or you might be thinking, I want to get more into the kind of nitty-gritty of everything. But I think it's important that we do kind of build up those layers, so starting with some kind of basic knowledge and then kind of expanding on it. And the content will then kind of flow in session 2, 3 and 4. You'll start getting much more from it. So bear with it if you think maybe some bits you've kind of heard before. I think it's important to kind of rehear it, take it back in, starting again. Stuart's not going to be able to give you the magic bullet or answer that's going to cause solve all of your challenges or anything you're kind of working on with social media. But hopefully, by the end of the 4 sessions that we've got together, you will feel like you've got more tools in your toolbox to face social media and move that forward in your businesses, however that looks, and become more stronger in your business. So I won't kind of keep going on. What I'll do now is I'll hand over to Stuart, who will take it from here.
Okay, thanks, Becky. Just to check, first of all, I take it you can all see my screen. You can all see some pictures of some sheep. Yeah?
Yeah.
Perfect. Good. So that's a good start then. Hi, everybody. Thanks for taking the time out of your day to come to the session. As Becky said, this program is called Stand Out from the Crowd on Social Media. It's divided over 4 sections, and I put it together really targeted specifically for direct sellers like yourselves. And the idea behind it is to really go from the very foundations of why you're creating social media for your business and what you want to achieve, all the way through to kind of more advanced levels of creating content that will be really engaging and kind of drive more potential customers and leads to your social profiles. So really, I'd say the key things that you want to try and get out of it is really to find out how you can use social media more effectively to help you grow your business, and also how you can use social media in a more productive way, so it's not taking a lot of your time and that being potentially time wasted. So let's crack on. In terms of a little bit of my background, first of all, as Becky said, my name's Stuart Murray. I've worked within direct sales in the UK for just over 13 years, actually working within the organisations themselves. So I've led different sales and marketing teams in loads of different roles, everything from customer service, sales manager, working out in the field as an area manager for Avon, and then most recently I was a marketing manager for the UK and Scandinavia for Amway. So kind of a broad spectrum of experience within the industry, which I think is quite important as someone supporting direct sellers with social media. I think it's good to have that kind of understanding of some of the challenges that you guys come up against every day. I started my own company in 2018, social media agency and videography production company. And my passion, to be honest, is really about helping others achieve success with their social media. So whether that be through these kind of sessions, working with you individually, or kind of just helping people with queries as and when they need them. I'm a member of the UK Direct Selling Association that hopefully you're all aware of, and I was lucky enough last year to win the Supplier Award in respect of the social media services I've provided to Amway. So hopefully you're in good hands. And the last part, just to give you some kind of reassurance, I'm certified as well in social media marketing with the Digital Marketing Institute. So I thought we'd begin just with a few kind of stats and facts and figures about social media to kind of put it into perspective, because it can sometimes be either a little bit overwhelming, or people sometimes genuinely, if they're quite new to social media, have no idea of how big the opportunity is. So first of all, 3.5 billion people use social media actively worldwide, which to me that's kind of figure has really, really ramped up in the last few years. So nearly half of the world's population are active on social media. The average person is spending over 2 hours a day on social media now, so just over 2.25 hours on social media. Facebook has nearly 2.41 billion active users, which you think there's 7 billion people in the world. That's a huge figure. So again, in terms of attracting potential people in to either be a customer or someone to join your team, there's a huge opportunity. Over 1 billion hours of YouTube videos are watched every day. And video, as we'll kind of cover in a later session, is really a very quick and upcoming and engaging format and content piece for social media that has proven to be really engaging and will get you better results, but we'll kind of cover that in a future session. And more than 200 million people that are using Instagram every day are visiting a business profile. And there's more studies that have come out recently that are suggesting that people now, when considering purchasing something, will go to social media as their first point of call to do a bit of research, find out what other people think about the product, and also just to find out a bit more about the company that's selling it. So what is their brand like, and is it a company that they would want to buy from or work with? So there's a huge opportunity out there, and it's really about how you can find that particular niche within social media that will help you, because not every single element of it will be relevant for you, not every platform's right for you, but there will be something in there that, provided you're kind of comfortable with it and take the time to become familiar and knowledgeable about what you're trying to do, I'd be pretty certain there's something out there that will help you without taking up too much time. First rule number one, I should say, is that social media should really complement but not consume your business. So by that, I mean that direct selling is ultimately a face-to-face business, and long before social media existed, direct selling companies and direct sellers were out there doing a great job. So like Becky said, social media isn't a silver bullet that overnight is going to all of a sudden get you loads of customers and new team members. And likewise, it also shouldn't consume your business from a time perspective. So again, you want to be going out there, building relationships with your existing customers, finding new customers, spending time with your team and recruiting new people, not spending all day, every day at a computer or your phone, typing posts on the hope that somebody might come through to you. So it's all about building your personal brand, like I said earlier, finding what works for you, and then it will definitely complement all of the existing business building activities that you're doing. And I think as we go through, certainly I think through maybe the first session today, you'll see that a lot of the principles that I'm going to talk about actually are very similar to the principles that you're probably already using outside of social media. So in terms of building relationships, attracting new people, new customers, new leads, all of the principles pretty much are the same. There's just a slightly different angle when using them on social media. And rule number two, social media is only a tool. So having loads of social media profiles, irrelevant of how great they look, again, isn't going to get you the results. You need to bring the social element to it. And you may have seen, if you kind of follow any kind of social media agencies or kind of tips accounts on Instagram or Facebook, that there's a big thing on social media now about building communities. And that's kind of come about after the whole kind of Cambridge Analytica scandal with Facebook, that social networks now are wanting to maybe move away from using it as a kind of a free advertising platform for business, where they kind of have this perception of, are they trying to influence or sway our opinions in any way, and that they want to show that they're actually a force for good, and they're allowing people with a common interest to come together and kind of talk and discuss their interests, their needs in a safe space. So you need to really fit your business into that, around finding what you're offering, how is that going to benefit individuals, and you need to build relationships just as you would in every other way that you go out and attract customers. Someone's only going to buy from you if they trust you and they feel that you're authentic and genuine, and the product that you're offering is what they need. Social media won't obviously present that to everybody by itself. You need to be that interaction that will bring a social element and help build those relationships with people. The bad news, maybe if you want to view it that way, is that you're not alone and that there is a lot of competition out there. In the UK, there's just over 425,000 direct sellers. So admittedly, they're not all with Osborne. So you could say they're maybe not a direct competitor of yours, but there's a lot of people out there that are trying to achieve the same thing and wanting to present a product and a business opportunity to people that maybe you're all kind of striving to find the right customer or the right lead. That figure in terms of globally, if you do kind of extend your business outside of the UK, is 118 million direct sellers around the world. So again, a lot of people that are all trying to do the same thing. And in terms of social media users in the UK, 66% of the UK population are active on social media. So that figure will be higher in terms of the people that have a social profile, but the people that are kind of using it day in, day out is 66%. And as we covered right at the start with those facts and figures, that's 3.5 billion people worldwide that using social media as well. So again, a big opportunity. But the point to be aware of really is that people are really skeptical about social media. You've probably all had instances where you've seen something, if you've got a Facebook profile, that someone has posted something and you kind of think, yeah, right, it doesn't ring true. So authenticity is really crucial, and what we're going to cover through this whole program is really how you can make yourself and your own brand stand out online and stand out from the competition, so that you can build those relationships with people and kind of fight any concerns that they might have about being skeptical about you or what you're offering them. So the course, as Becky said, is split over 4 modules. The first one today is really, like Becky said, the foundations around what you want to achieve from social media and how you can start building your brand through presenting yourself in the right way. Module 2 then talks about really how you can go about selling through not directly selling, so talking about the benefits of a product and attracting customers and prospects in the right way without kind of using a hard sales pitch. Then the second half, so when we get into March and April, this is really, I'd say, probably the more exciting stuff, if you want to call it that. So when we get into kind of different content pieces that you can create and different tools and techniques that can help you create really engaging content that will keep your audience coming back. And actually, these are the things that probably will make you stand apart from other people, because you may be doing something a bit more varied that other people might not be doing. And the very final one will then be more of a deep dive about how you can use photo and videos within your social media in a more effective way, with some different creative ideas to help you through. So the first module, as we said, about being clear on what you want to achieve and how you want to present yourself. As we go through it, if there are any immediate questions that you've got, if you could write them in the chat box or raise your hand. I can't immediately see it because I've only got the presentation and the one small video in the corner. So Becky, Sue, if you could jump, let me know if there's any kind of big questions. I can more than happy to answer them as we go. But there will be time at the end as well if there's any questions that you've got. So first of all, thank you to everybody that answered some of the questions that Becky sent out to you a week or so ago. The first one of those was around how often are you using social media at the moment to grow your business? And the good news for that is that all of you are using it in some way or another. So some of you are using it occasionally, but the vast majority of you are using it all the time. So 70% of people are really active on it, which is great to hear. And then how would you rate your level of expertise? We've got a little bit more of a spread. Only 2% of people considering themselves to be an expert. The vast majority are kind of falling in beginner and intermediate, and a few of you are considering yourselves real beginners at the kind of novice stage. The reason I wanted to ask those questions was really to kind of find out where the level of kind of expertise really, because as Becky said, a lot of the content is very difficult to kind of do a one size fits all with social media, because all of you will be at different levels. So what I would say is to really, particularly in this first session, pick out the parts that are relevant for you, because there probably might be some bits that you haven't considered already. There might be some bits that maybe make you rethink how you're already doing things. But another angle to consider is really, are there elements that I'll be talking through that you could help your team with as well? So if there are members in your team that haven't even started using social media yet, or aren't at the stage that you are with it, there might be some useful hints and tips and kind of nuggets of knowledge within here today that you can help them with. And after the session, I'd be providing all the slides and things to Becky and Sue so they can forward them on to you, so you can kind of feel free to use that with your teams. So the agenda for this first session is all really, as I said, about setting the foundations. And it might feel a little bit strange given that all of you are using social media already, but a lot of what we're covering can still be applied at any time when you're using social media. So I'd maybe come at it from the angle of, this is a good time for you to review your existing social media, and is there anything that you want to refocus or realign and kind of start working in maybe in a different way with it being a new year. So we'll talk about your target audience and how you can find out who exactly you're trying to reach through social media. We'll also talk about setting objectives, finding your unique selling point, so what makes you stand out from everybody else and what makes you unique, how you can choose your social platforms. A lot of people always think that it's a good thing to kind of spread yourself over every social platform that's out there. We'll kind of talk about, is that really the case? And then the last part really is about your kind of own brand. So how do you balance the personal life that you have in your professional life, and then really how are you being perceived through things like your tone of voice. So first of all, then, identifying your target audience. This, I'd say, is the first step in kind of the basics of, if you're creating a social media profile for business, is who are you trying to reach through using social media. And it's probably best to avoid using a very broad group of people. So sometimes direct sellers will say, well, I just want to reach everybody, because the opportunity that I'm offering is, we don't discriminate, it's open to everybody, and everybody could benefit or know somebody that would benefit from buying the product that I'm offering. But it's better to try and be a bit more targeted and build personas around the different types of people that you want to reach out to. So different kind of things that you can consider. Some of these will be very, very obvious. So there's more kind of demographical things, such as someone's gender, their age, their nationality, or their location. They can be a kind of a base level of who am I trying to find within my ideal customer profile or my ideal team member profile of the future. But in addition to all the demographics, it can be far more useful to think outside of the box and look at the kind of things that are listed in the kind of the bottom half of the text on the screen. So what stage of someone's life are they at? Have they just had children? Are they buying their first home? Have they just got married? What are their aspirations? What kind of things drive them? And the biggest one, I'd say, is what are their needs? So if someone's going on social media looking for something, are you able to provide them with what they're looking for? That's the biggest crux of it all. If you can give someone what they need, you're probably going to build the relationship with them. And one way to maybe think of these things is, if you were building a relationship with somebody outside of social media, it's very unlikely that you would get an ongoing relationship with somebody based purely on the demographic. So we don't really build relationships with people just because they are a man or a woman, or because they are a certain age. There'll be other things outside of that we have in common. So it might be our interests, what we do in life, our attitudes to certain things, how we behave. They're the things that will build the relationship, and it's exactly the same on social media. So start thinking about who are the different groups of people. You don't have to have just one audience. You could have lots of different audiences, but think about who are those people, and for these different kind of points, build up a picture of who your ideal person is. One way that you can do that can be useful to kind of refer back to and make sure that you're always on track is to create what's called an audience statement. So it can be just a couple of sentences that you write down, you'd kind of fill out the pink bits on the screen. So it's my audience is or are, and then you would say who that type of person is, who need, and then you would specify exactly what their need is. And then you explain why you're qualified to serve that group. And that's where you really kind of explain why you're the person that is right to help them over anybody else. So that might be a little bit confusing. You're thinking, God, how do I fill it in? To give you an example, this is my personal one. So if I was going to complete an audience statement for me based on what I'm doing and how I use social media, this is what mine would be. So my audience are direct sellers who want to grow their businesses using social media. I'm particularly qualified to serve this group because I'm a certified social media specialist who's a member of the UK DSA, and I've worked in the industry for 13 years. So I'm being specific around it's a group of direct sellers. That's the audience that I'm targeting. The need they have is that they want to use social media to grow their business. And then you're kind of qualifying why should they choose you over anybody else. So there might be loads of other social media consultants out there, but have they worked within the direct selling industry, and are they a member of the DSA? That's my kind of point of distinction to other social media consultants. So once you've got your audience defined, which hopefully a lot of you will probably have, I guess, in your minds now, you kind of know the people that you're looking to target. It's then around setting objectives. And this is probably something that you're really familiar with. So apologies if this feels kind of like teaching you to suck eggs. But specific objective setting for social media is really, really important, because you can spend a lot of time on social media and never know, is it actually proving any benefit to you, and is your time justified in spending it on social media versus every other way that you could go out and grow your business, or spending time with family, etc. So just as you probably would for your other business objectives, I'd really advise to make all of your social objectives SMART. And again, probably all of you are familiar with SMART, so apologies if it's kind of covering the obvious, but we'll just quickly run through what they mean and how they are relevant to social media. So specific is really important from a social perspective. You want to target exactly what you are trying to achieve on social media, which platform are you wanting to use, so that you're not kind of spreading yourselves too thinly. It can be really easy to make a very broad social media objective, like I want to grow my sales using social media, which is so broad it could cover a million and one things, and it'll be difficult to ever really quantify, are you achieving what you're setting out to do? So we'll kind of talk about how you can make that specific in a second. Measurable is really important as well. You need to know, how are you going to measure whether you've ever achieved what you're setting out to do. And an important consideration for social media is to make sure, is the measure that you're putting in actually even workable for social media? So whatever you're setting as your target, if you like, from a measuring point of view, you need to make sure that the social networks will give you that information so you can find out if you're achieving it. So things like the number of followers you've got, your engagement level, so how many people are liking or commenting on your posts, all of those things you can get, but there might be some things that you want to measure that actually a social network doesn't provide you with. So we can also talk about those in a bit more detail. In module 3, we'll go into that in a lot more detail, kind of about what data social networks provide to you and how you can find out what's working and what's not. Attainable. This is a really important one, because I think sometimes people on social media can really beat themselves up that it's not happening overnight, and they see other accounts that, say on Instagram, maybe have thousands of followers, and you're just not getting that traction, and you're only maybe in up to 100 or 200 followers, if that, and it kind of feels like you're just running constantly against the tide, and it's taking you a long time to get there. So when you're setting a goal, it needs to be something that you realistically can achieve, and we can kind of talk about what those levels can be. What's attainable for each of you as individuals will vary from individual to individual, because again, all of the time that you might have to spend on social media will change, and also your level of focus might be different. So again, what's right for me won't be right for you and won't be right for the next person. Relevant as well. The biggest thing I'd say is making sure that your social objectives fit into your bigger and more wider business objectives. So whatever you're trying to achieve through your Osborne business, make sure that these social goals are aligned and are feeding into those bigger objectives, because if they're not, you need to really question, why am I doing this? Is it really doing what I need to do to achieve the bigger thing that I want to grow with my business? And time bound, again, set yourself a time of when you want to achieve things by. With social media, because it's something there that runs in the background, sometimes people can think, well, I'll just let it keep going. I don't need to have an end date, because it's always going to keep evolving. But again, I would set yourselves maybe quarterly targets as to what you want to achieve. And then it gives you a chance to go back and say, actually, am I achieving what I need to? And if not, how can I realign and refocus and maybe change something? If you make that time limit too long and say in like a year or 2 years, I want to be at this point, it can be very easy to lose sight of it. And you might get to the end of that year period and think, actually, I've not really achieved what I wanted to, but I probably knew that 11 months ago. So if I'd maybe set shorter term goals, I might have forced myself to actually realign and think, okay, I need to start changing something because this isn't working for me. Couple of examples that relate to social media that are SMART goals. I want to achieve 500 Facebook followers by the end of 2020. That's quite a simple one, but it's normally quite common when people start working with social media. You also want to get people seeing your profiles, because otherwise how are they ever going to know what you're offering? But I would say don't get too caught up on what we would call vanity matrix. So things like the number of followers you've got, how many people are liking your posts, how many people see it. You need to think really that are those things actually driving and growing your business and moving it forward. So you could have 50,000 people that follow you on Instagram, but if none of them actually ever contact you to purchase or say they want to work with you, what's the value of those people other than that it might make you feel good for, wow, I've attracted 50,000 people, they want to look what I'm posting. If they're not actually doing anything, they're of no value to you. So while it's good to have these kind of growth targets in terms of followers, don't make them the be all and end all. Other kind of targets that you probably would want to start feeding in is something that either relates to sales or recruitment. So I want to increase my sales in 2020 by 10% as a result of finding new customers through social media. It's something that's it's the figure I've kind of plucked that out of the air. You would kind of set the level of growth, obviously, that's right for you, and what time frame you'd want to use. But all of those things, it kind of fits perfectly within the SMART framework. And the last one, doubling team size by the end of 2020 using social media as a recruitment tool. So those three could be three goals that you realistically could have. Obviously, tweaking the number, but they're an example of the last two really are about what would actually drive growth in your business versus just growing social media for the sake of it. Finding your unique selling point is something that sometimes people can struggle with a little bit and think, actually, if all of you as Usborne organisers or leaders are offering the same products and the same opportunity, why should I, as a member of the public, choose one of you over somebody else? And this will take a little bit of time, and you might have already done this, in which case it's great, and maybe write that in the chat if you have to kind of share your experience. But have a think out of all of the different things that you can offer and what makes you as a person. Think about those and how they are different to other direct sellers and other Usborne organisers. So the first thing on the list there of what you sell, you obviously all sell the same product base, so that won't be a point of distinction, but everything else on this list could be. So how you go about selling the product, where you sell it, where you're based, what your background is, your lifestyle, all of those things will make you more unique, and they're the things that might make a connection with other people. So provided the level that you're comfortable at sharing those things about your background, kind of what you've worked in previously, a bit about your lifestyle, your personal history, you'll make connections with different people based on that. And these kind of things should be feeding into who your audience were. So when we talked a little bit earlier on about building up that target audience, hopefully some of these things will resonate with them. A few good things to call out as well is things around your accessibility and the service you provide, the support you provide to people. So if you're on Facebook and Instagram, are you the kind of person that only predominantly works on your business maybe during the week? So if somebody messaged you on a Sunday afternoon, will you reply to that message immediately, or will you leave it to the Monday to reply? If somebody messaged you at 9 o'clock at night, again, do you reply then, or do you go back to them the following day when you're kind of in your normal working hours, if you like? Those kind of things, again, can all be something that might sway somebody thinking, actually, yeah, that's somebody that I want to work with or I want to buy from. because they're there when I need them. They respond in a way that I'm comfortable with. And they're working with me in a way that I want to be worked with. We've all probably had a scenario where you've contacted a company to buy something, and kind of response you get back just doesn't feel right, and you maybe can't quantify it, but the way that person or the company's made you feel has kind of put a block and put distance between you and them as a company. So again, think about how you can avoid doing that, so that people feel comfortable with you and actually they want to choose you over other people. The way to think about it, if this maybe helps, is first of all think about what you're offering. So out of all of those things on that list, and it's not an exhaustive list, there will be other things that you've got to build into it. What are you offering? So from a product point of view, you as a person, the way you work with people, what you're sharing on social media, what is your offering? And then overlay that with what your audience needs. So when you've come up with this persona of who your audience is, what are the things that they are looking for, and why are they going on social media to find it? And somewhere there'll be an overlap. So that section in the middle, what you're offering and what they need will overlap. And that's a great place, because that's where you're going to hopefully be able to convert them into a customer or a team member. But the last point that's really important to consider is what are your competitors offering as well? So there will be things that they're offering that you are not. Then they will also overlap with what your audience needs. But the area that you want to be really focusing on is what we call a sweet spot within kind of social media consultancy, if you like. And that's the area where what you offer and what your audience needs overlaps, but your competitors aren't offering that at all. So that could be for any one of these reasons on the left-hand side. But if you can get in that sweet spot, that's really where you want to be, because no one else is giving those potential customers or team members what you can. And that's where you're going to build that relationship with them, if that makes sense. Choosing social platforms. So as I said, when we kind of ran through the agenda, a lot of people think it's a good thing to be on absolutely every social network, to kind of spread yourself everywhere so as many people as possible can see you and find out what you're offering. But the truth is that really you don't have to use every social network out there, and I'd probably encourage you not to. It will probably take up a lot of your time. You might not feel particularly knowledgeable or comfortable on all of them. And in reality, they probably won't all give you equal benefit. So the way to think about it, I would say, is to first of all consider your audience. So when you've defined who your audience are they active on a platform that you're considering? So as a bit of an extreme example, if you were targeting an older generation of person, maybe somebody 50 plus, Snapchat probably isn't a social network that is going to get you the best exposure to that age demographic. So it's a bit of an extreme example, but that's the way to maybe think of it from your audience. Are they using the platform that you want to use? And if they're not, what's the point in using that platform, because you're not going to reach the person you want to. You can, if you just kind of search on Google, you will find quite freely information from social networks about who uses their platforms. If you want to find out what certain type of people use different platforms, you could search for that. Or again, if you kind of want to ask that question, feel free to let me know and I can kind of give you that information on a future session. Think about your objectives as well. So is a platform you're considering actually contributing to you achieving your objectives? So if you want to sell a product, is LinkedIn really the best place to do that? LinkedIn is more a professional network. Is that really the best place to sell one of your books to somebody, versus maybe Instagram that's more visual, where you can kind of share the more visual element of the product and maybe make a connection with people better? So again, think about the platform and your objectives. And then last two things really, knowledge and time. Have you got the knowledge about a platform to use it properly and kind of in a professional way without making your brand look weaker than other people that are using it? And have you got the time to add another social platform into the ones that you're already working with? So just to talk through some of the key ones, I'll run through the key 4 platforms. There are a lot more out there. If you've got questions about them, feel free to let me know and we can kind of maybe pick it up after the session. But these are the kind of the most common ones, I guess, and the different options that are available within these networks. So first of all, Facebook, as we said, by far the biggest social network in the world. Virtually everybody has been, is, or probably will be on Facebook at some point in their life. So it's kind of a no-brainer, really, that most direct sellers, I'd say, would use Facebook in some way. A personal profile is very much what it says on the tin. It's designed for you personally and you as an individual to connect and talk with your friends and family. It's not designed for a business point of view. It can sometimes get a little bit blurred when people are self-employed, as you guys are. Of that you are your business, if you like. So people can use their personal profile to maybe sell the product, advertise the opportunity, but it can be not always the best thing to do. It does, from a kind of a boring legal point of view, if you want to view it that way. It violates Facebook's terms and conditions of that personal profiles. You're not allowed to advertise any business from a personal profile. So again, I'd kind of advise you from that point of view to not do it. Because it could result, if Facebook did identify you as kind of using your personal profile for business purposes, they could remove you and ban you from Facebook, which isn't obviously a great thing to happen. Business pages are free to create, and that's where you would really advertise your business and kind of make it your shop window, if you like, for your Usborne business on Facebook. There are groups available as well. I'm sure some of you, I think, are obviously a member of the Usborne Leader group, I think, anyway. So you're probably familiar with them. But groups really on Facebook are about building communities. So like we said, finding people and bringing them together around a common interest or a common need where they can interact with each other and build relationships and talk amongst themselves. So the different options of those are firstly an open group. Open group just simply means that it's searchable on Facebook, and people can view the content without having to join. It's not kind of behind closed doors. A closed group is very much what it says. People can only view the content when they're a member of the group, so they might have to answer questions to join that group and prove that they meet certain criteria before an admin allows them to join. But people can search for the group and it will show up in search results. And lastly, a secret group is very much that. It's a secret. People can't search for the group, and you can only become a member of the group and view the content if someone invites you to join. The different ways you can maybe use these different options, I would say things like an open group. You would use an open group to attract a wider group of people in, and it would be based around an interest. So if storytelling or books for children, those might be something that you could create an open group about, attract people in with good content, and then you could start building a relationship with somebody that over time could lead to them becoming a potential customer or maybe working with you. A closed group would be great for working with your team, so using as a communication tool to share information with your team members that isn't appropriate for a public forum. So if you were using your business page as, if you like, a shop window, and you were sharing the products that were available and the opportunity, you might not want to talk about particular incentives that are only applicable to members of your team. It would confuse the potential customers. Well, what do they mean by an Usborne organizer? What does that incentive mean? Do I qualify it if I buy product from them? So again, that might be better within a closed group that you can invite your team members to, but people that aren't in your team can't see it. Arguably, a secret group could be used in the same way. It's just, again, whether kind of personal preference, whether you want it to show up in search results. Stories and events are also good. I'd say stories are really good for sharing little clips from your day. So things that you're doing throughout the day to show your lifestyle, and maybe what the lifestyle of someone doing what you're doing, what that looks like, what it involves, where you go, who you talk to. So for those of you that aren't familiar with stories, they are short pieces of content that you can either share as a photo, a video, you can apply filters to it, but I will only show for 24 hours. So it can be good for very short term. Here's what I'm doing today, but I don't need people to look back at that in a year's time, scrolling down my page to see that I was at a meeting talking to certain people on a particular day. It doesn't have kind of ongoing value, but you want to share with people what you're doing. Events are very much, you might be using these already, but they're good for things like team meetings. If you want to get a gauge of how many people are likely to come to a meeting or an event, or even it might be if you're using things like Facebook Live, so using live video, you could maybe do a team meeting or an event online. You could create an event for that live video to give you a gauge of, is there an interest for me to be doing these things, and what kind of number of people are likely to be coming along. Instagram, there's a few less options on here, but Instagram is by far the fastest growing social network. In terms of users year on year, it's really kind of just doubling up year on year. And Instagram stories work very much in the same way as Facebook stories, short content that disappears after 24 hours. They are growing exponentially, and people are using that as a way of very short term, just communicating with their contacts and their followers. This is where I am. This is what's happening at the moment. The slight difference with Instagram stories is that you can save them as highlights. So we'll come onto this a bit more when we talk about content in a future session. But highlights are the little circles that appear underneath the bio of someone's profile, and you can save particular Instagram stories as a highlight. So it might be that you would save an Instagram story around promotions that are available to customers, or book of the month, or join my team. There might be content that actually, when you want someone to come to your Instagram profile, they can see those highlights as soon as they go to the profile. And if there was one saying join my team, it's more of an immediate call to action to click in it, and then they might see content that you've shared that tells them about the opportunity, what they want to do if they're interested, what it offers to them. That it can be good ways to get an immediate call to action to people. In terms of personal and business accounts, there is no difference at all between a personal and business account. They're both free to create. The only real difference is that a business account will give you a couple more options. And most importantly, it gives you analytics behind how well different posts are performing. So it will tell you how many people have seen your post, how many have commented on it, liked it, shared it with other people, what age they are, where they're from, what hours of the day they're active, what day of the week they're active. So all of that kind of information is really useful, because it will allow you to find out who actually are the people that are looking at my account. You can then compare that back to who you've defined your target audience being, and think, actually, do these two things match up? If I'm targeting somebody that's maybe, say, in the 20 to 30 age group, but my Instagram profile shows me I'm mainly attracting 30 to 40 year olds. Again, you can maybe think, actually, is what I thought my audience profile, is that really right? And do I actually want to now move over to this group of people because it's working with them and I'm getting the business from them? So in terms of, if you're not sure about how to convert from personal to business account, again, just, you can let me know either separately after this and I kind of talk through it. But it literally is kind of just a setting, a button that you tick. I want a business account. You tick it and then it just switches you over. Happens immediately. It's simple to do. IGTV is Instagram TV. It launched maybe early last year. And it really is Instagram's version of YouTube. Instagram want to overtake Facebook to an extent, that they're owned by the same company, but they definitely want to overtake YouTube as being where people come to view their video content. And the main benefit of IGTV is that it allows you to record videos longer than 1 minute. So on Instagram, you can post videos within your grid, so within the squares, but there's a 1 minute cutoff. So if people record a video and it's longer than a minute, the video will just come to an abrupt end. Whereas with an IGTV, you have profile that is linked to your personal business account, and it will allow you to go up to, I believe it's 10 minutes. If you have a larger Instagram account, you can go a lot longer, but within 10 minutes, that probably covers the vast majority of people of video content they'd want to share. And again, you can then share that through a story or through your grid, that you've got a longer video that people just swipe up and then they can watch this longer video. So that definitely has potential for people. Twitter is this is a bit of a Marmite platform, I'd say. Some people are very pro it as a direct seller. Other people are very anti it because of the limitations it has. So there's a limit around the number of characters that you can use. And it just doesn't present you with as many options in terms of, you can share video and photos, obviously, and links, but the way it can sometimes display them isn't right. The dimensions can be very niggly. If you don't get the exact dimension of the image, it might cut half of it off, which doesn't always look great. But some people, it works for them. It can be a way of sharing short little updates, but you don't really get the opportunity to go into any real detail. And a key difference, I'd say, between Instagram and Twitter is the use of hashtags. So again, we'll come on to this in a future session, but on Instagram, hashtags are a great way of people finding you. So if someone is searching for business opportunity, children's books, work from home, mumpreneur, anything like that, your content, provided you're using those hashtags, will appear when someone searches for that. Provided you use the right hashtags, it can be a great way to get new people to find you. On Twitter, you can use hashtags, but because of the limit of characters, you can't use as many, and they're not necessarily as productive as they might be on Instagram. Finally, LinkedIn. The reason I've included LinkedIn, not everybody always uses it from a direct sales perspective, but personally, I think it does hold value, particularly if you're looking to recruit new team members. It's certainly a different network to any of the others, and what people go on there for is very, very different to anybody else. It's people, I'd say, looking for a particular business opportunity, or looking for information about a more professionally orientated information piece. Things like I said earlier around people selling product. I personally, through work I've done with other clients, have seen some people selling beauty products or skincare products or nutrition through LinkedIn, and it just doesn't sit right to me. I don't go on LinkedIn to go and buy moisturizer, and I'm guessing most people don't. And that's where, in terms of the damage social media could potentially do to your brand, if you're going on there and pushing product sales, if I was going on there looking for somebody to work with through a new business opportunity, I probably wouldn't pick you, because I'd be thinking, actually, if they're kind of going to be encouraging me to push product through a network that I know isn't really geared up for that, I don't really want to work with that person. So it can be an idea of how using the wrong network could actually do you more damage than good, really. So just be mindful of that. The options that are available are personal profile. So again, that's more about you and your career background, your professional background. You can create company pages, which is for you as a company. There's no real limit on what a company can be. So you could create one for your Osborne business. But again, I just make sure, is it the right thing to really be doing, and are you going to get the value for doing it? Because the personal profiles on LinkedIn are about your professional life, I'd say that might be the area where you could really use LinkedIn, talking about who you are, what you do, why you do what you do, and who you're looking for. That could all be covered through your personal profile on LinkedIn. So I'd probably suggest using that if you want to. And the last thing, groups, that's again is very much like on Facebook groups, but more topics that are geared around professional development and more maybe technical elements. So it's unlikely to be about more friendly and more relaxed interests and motivations that people have got. Just click through to the next slide. Balancing personal and professional you. This again could be something that people either get or they sometimes can really struggle with, of where do you strike the balance between how much of the real you do you show through your business and do you show through social media. Some people are very closed doors and they don't want to share too much about them, and you need to really find what's right for you. It's good to definitely show your personality, so it's what makes you unique, the way you talk, the way you say things, the way you position things, and just who you are. That's what makes you you. So don't shy away from that, and don't sound too robotic. So again, you would, the way you will talk and the way you write things will be different from person to person, but that's a good thing. Nobody wants to see every Usborne seller writing everything in exactly the same way, because again, why would they ever choose anybody over anybody else if it's just this kind of generic robotic response that kind of gets churned out all the time. A good way to show your personality through things like photos is not always having what looks like to be professionally taken photos. So within your profile, having photos that are taken on your phone, provided the settings right and the lighting is good. Always being in natural daylight is a really good thing for photos, but taking a picture with your phone, again, it just shows that you're maybe not too polished, that you're a genuine real person. And again, things like that, they can be a little thing, but kind of psychologically can make people relate to you a bit more than somebody that only has what look to be too polished a photo on their profile. You also want to remain professional throughout everything that you're saying on social media. You're ultimately representing your business in this context. So think about how you go back and how you respond to people, what you say, how you say, because social media and the internet is notorious for things. Once it's out there, it's very difficult to remove it. So yes, you might be able to delete a post, but if it really rattled someone's cage and they were unhappy with it, they're probably going to have taken a picture of it, screenshotted it, saved it. And if you delete it, it could come back to haunt you. So it's better to just avoid that in the first place. Kind of decide where you strike this balance between personal and professional, and then stick with that consistently. The key thing I'd say is around being consistent. So wherever you fall on that scale of maybe being formal to informal, stick with it. Don't make one post very formal in kind of the language you're using and then all of a sudden jump in the next one to being really relaxed and informal, because it can confuse people. And again, to kind of pull in a psychological element to it, there's a phrase that consistency builds familiarity. So if someone is seeing the same thing over and over, they get a sense of that it's feeling familiar to them and they're more comfortable with it. And that in turn will lead to trust. And trust is then the foundation of that actually somebody may want to go take the next step of either purchasing something from you or joining your team. Being mindful of the perception that other people have on you, we'll kind of cover in a couple of slides time, but really putting yourself in your customer's shoes is a really good thing. Think if you were a customer looking for what you're offering, what would you expect to see when you look at someone's social media? And maybe even if you did find the Usborne opportunity through social media, think about what was it that attracted you to the opportunity and made you think, actually, yep, I want to work with that person. I want to be a part of their team. And think about how can you apply that to yourself. Tone of voice, I won't go into too much detail about this because it kind of falls under the personal, professional argument anyway, but your tone of voice isn't what you're saying, it's how you're saying it. And it can be really, really important because the vast majority of what you do on social media probably is going to be either written rather than you actually saying it. Yes, there are videos and you can do live video, but again, a lot of it, the stuff that will stick out there is what you've written down in either captions or comments or posts. So what you're saying and how you're saying it is an expression of you and your brand. So it's not just about what you're selling, what you're offering, it's about you as a person and your personality. So don't shy away from that. And like we said, don't kind of take a robotic stance. If you maybe have a bit of a quirky personality, use that. It will set you apart from the rest, and there'll be people that will connect with you because of that. Yes, there'll be some people that think, actually, no, that person's not for me, but that will happen to absolutely everybody. So don't kind of try to box yourself into being this perfect social media personality, if you like. Stay true to who you are, because that's what's going to make the real connections. Again, this whole thing of trust and familiarity, tone of voice is a really good way of doing that. Like we said as well, with balancing the personal and professional, consistency is key, and you can say exactly the same thing but in very different ways. So as an example, if you had a promotion that was for a customer, you could maybe position that as, I wish to inform you of a promotion that I have available today. Or you could say, great news, heads up, I've got a fantastic offer coming your way. So it's ultimately getting the same message across, but done in very different ways. The first one is more formal, second's more relaxed and friendly. Think about what feels right for you and where do you want to position yourself, and then stick to it. For some brands, they will use a more formal language. So things like banks, if you think the language they generally use and the way they communicate, their tone of voice is generally very formal. It's quite technical and legal in some ways, but that will build trust for them as a brand. They need to appear kind of formal because we trust them with our money. Whereas a brand like Innocent Drinks that produce smoothies, they talk in a very familiar, friendly way. And again, that builds trust with the consumer, because they're not so, when they're looking for a smoothie brand, they don't want somebody that's talking very technical and in legal, formal language. They want something a bit more friendly and relaxed. So again, think about where you position yourself. You don't always want to sound formal in what you're saying. It needs to sound kind of natural. It can help you to influence and persuade people. So again, the way you say things will make someone feel something. They're unlikely to remember in the future the exact words you said, but they're probably going to remember how you made them feel. So if you made them feel good, you made them feel belittled, you made them feel stupid, they'll remember that feeling. So again, just think about the language that you're using and how that can translate. It can sometimes be a bit more difficult to do that through the written word. People are very aware of what they're saying when they're talking to someone face to face, or using their actual voice. But when you're writing it, we've probably all received emails or text messages where you've completely misconstrued what someone actually meant and you've read it in the wrong way. So just be mindful. That same logic applies to social media as well. And lastly, how you're being perceived. This is something that I would say, don't get too hung up on. It's good to be aware of it, but there's something called there's kind of now like mental awareness around social media with mental health, and actually, is it a good thing? And so this kind of social media trend is kind of coming back the other way, whereas everybody in the past has been on social media, and you kind of see teenagers constantly on their phones. It's now kind of coming more full cycle, and actually millennials and not millennials, Generation Z and kind of younger people now, 13-year-olds to 16-year-olds, maybe aren't using social media as much, and they're maybe using in a different way. So don't kind of beat yourself up around you've got to be this perfect social media person. Be mindful of who you are and what brand you're putting across, and that's through all of the things that we've said. So what you're posting, how you're saying it, the way you're replying to people, all those things will build your brand. And there will be people that will get a perception of you that you don't feel is right. So somebody might misconstrue something and misinterpret what you meant. But I wouldn't say to disregard that. Use people's perceptions as you as feedback and learn from it and adapt it and adapt what you're doing. So if somebody maybe sends you feedback as actually that last post that you wrote, it made me feel this way, or that message you sent, actually, I can't believe you wrote it that way. Use that to your advantage and ask people, okay, well, you obviously apologise and ask them, okay, well, how do you think I could have worded that differently? Just as you probably would in any other kind of scenario where that comes up. Learn from it. And adapt the way you would use social media in the future from it, because then it's this continually evolving cycle of you do something, you see the result, take the learnings and change, and then do it all over again. And that applies exactly the same to your brand. You can control what people are thinking of you through everything that you're doing on social media. So build the brand that you want other people to talk about. If you don't want people to say certain things about you, think about what can you do on social media to avoid that ever happening in the first place. And the most important thing I would say, and a good point to end on, is don't lose sight of the real you. Like we said right at the very, very start of today's session, direct selling and Usborne Books existed long before social media did. Social media isn't the be all and end all. If it got taken away tomorrow, you would probably still be doing what you're doing and you would grow your business. So don't get too caught up on it. It won't happen overnight, sadly. I've experienced that personally through social media. As for my own business, from going just over 2 years now, it takes time to build a lot of audience. There are a lot of other social media consultants out there, just as there are a lot of other direct sellers. But just keep focused on your objectives, who your audience is, what you're trying to achieve, and if you need to adjust it, just adjust it. And most importantly, if you do want to take a break, if you're kind of feeling like, oh, I've just, you're not feeling inspired on a particular day, take a break from it. That can sometimes be the best thing, of taking 1 or 2 days off, a weekend away from social media, and think, actually, I'm just going to go away, spend time in the real world with my family and friends, and then you're probably going to come back and you'll probably then be feeling a bit more inspired to then go on and share loads of stuff that's going to inspire people. So I feel like I've been talking for a very long time, and it feels really strange to have not heard anything back. So I'm hoping there are a few questions, or you've got some things that you want to come ask of me. But I hope it's been useful. But I don't know. I'm just going to come out of the presentation now and hopefully see if there are any any questions or anything from any of you. Let's see. So I'll just quickly scrolling through to the beginning. So can I ask, if Facebook is now more about building communities, why has it been more difficult to receive notifications of the groups we're in over the last year or so, even when we're having our settings set to all notifications? Notifications are a nightmare, and Facebook are very nervous because of the criticism they've had of that they're kind of spamming people with unnecessary content. They should work, however, but there are very different settings within groups, business pages and personal profiles that will allow people to see it. So there will be things like within a group, if you were doing a live video, people would have to choose a particular setting to be told they want to be notified a live video is happening. If they want to receive certain posts, they need to select certain notifications. I can find out all of the settings within there, and I can either send that through to Becky and Sue, and they can email it on to you. But yeah, it's a little bit more fiddly. The only other thing that can sometimes block is people their device settings. So on people's phones or tablets, people, again, you might enable a notification through Facebook, but you might not actually have it set up on that your phone will always deliver it to you. Things like do not disturb. So there's a lot of different reasons why it's not coming through, but let me have a look, and I'll send you through, certainly for Facebook, where all the different places are where you can enable notifications, and hopefully that might help it, if that's okay. Considering our target is mainly mums, which is the platform they use the most? That's really, really difficult. I'd say even mums could be a really broad category. Even though I'd say to move away from demographics, age is a big thing, number of kids, are they in full-time work, are they just looking to buy products, are they single mums? All of those kind of things will influence it. If anything, I would say this is a very broad statement, but I would say if you're looking for customers, Instagram is the place to be, particularly with your product, because it's very visual. hashtags are a great way, again, for your product. Anything that has an emotional connection and anything really to do with kids is that it generally will perform better. There are some really great hashtags for female entrepreneurs, mums in business, that will really, really help. We'll cover them in a future session a bit more when we talk about engagement. But I would say, yeah, for certainly on the product side, use Instagram. Facebook is there are so many people on Facebook. Your competition is a lot more diverse. Instagram is really visual, and it's an easier way to reach people, I would say. But we'll come on to that a bit more when we talk about content types as well. Is it okay to share your business page from your personal page? Yep, absolutely. Facebook will want you to do that because they want more people looking at Facebook more broadly. So again, as long as you're not selling a product directly from your personal page, but you're sharing a post or a link to your business page, that's absolutely fine. Is sharing to business to personal page violating the rules? That one we've just covered as well. Can you do stories and pages on pages and groups? On pages, yes, you can. In groups, you can't. I think in the future, they're looking to maybe introduce it, but because groups are intended to be lots of different people, I think the reason why it doesn't exist now is if you've got a group with 1,000 people in, all 1,000 people could be posting a story on the same day. So you could end up with thousands of stories that people would never get through. So no one would ever look at them. So that's probably why they're not in groups. But yeah, on pages, they work exactly the same. And provided you've got an Instagram business profile and a Facebook business page, you can actually create one story on Instagram and share it to your Instagram story and your business page story as well. So you're not having to do the same thing twice. You can save a bit of time. Twitter is great for working with schools. Yeah, there's actually quite a few accounts as well in terms of what I do that, funny enough, do target. Target's a very horrible. It sounds horrible. I don't mean it that way, but their audience are kind of mums with children at school, and attracting like parent groups, that kind of thing, communicating through certain things. So yeah, there will be certain groups. You can create lists within Twitter as well, and you can get yourself added to certain lists around certain topics. So again, yeah, that could be a good thing if you've got a community again of people that you can interact with. That can definitely work. I use Twitter for fellow authors. It's a great insight. LinkedIn is good for networking. Yeah, completely agree. Again, more for me, Twitter is more a space for well-known, not necessarily celebrities, but well-known individuals. They're probably going to be on Twitter. So again, if you can link to that, provide links to the profiles of authors of the books and things, it's a great thing. It will obviously help their exposure. And again, it just kind of builds this trust that you're actually, you're working with credible people and the products are good products from reputable people as well. So yeah, it's definitely a good thing. I had this when I tried a chatbot, went down like a lead balloon. Yeah, so I presume that comment from Beth is around having generic scripted phrases, if you like, that they can be good in a certain way. So on Facebook, when you've got a business page, you've probably seen through Messenger, you can create stock responses, auto responses. So if someone messages you saying, I want to join your team, you could set up a response that would come back whenever you get that message. They can be good. They're good if you'll get an immediate response, but it can just sound like the same things being said over and over. So just think about how and when you use them. A good one to have is maybe just like an out of office message. So to maybe have one set up when someone sends you a message, they get a quick response back saying, hi, I'm not around at the moment. I'll come back to you as soon as I can. Just something like that. So they know you've got your message, but write it in the way you would talk to them normally. Don't make it, thank you for your message. I'm afraid I'm out of the office at the moment. Again, that's not you. You wouldn't talk to somebody like that face to face. Make it about you and write it in the language that you would naturally use. Let's quickly scroll down. Thank you. Good. I'm hoping that it was useful. When doing a live in a group, for instance, a training session with your team. Is there a guide to the maximum length it should be before you start to lose engagement? Yes. The absolute longest I would say to do for any live video is an hour. And that would be at the absolute extreme. If you've got really good content and it's varied and it keeps going and it flows and you're kind of engaging with your audience, that's good. I'd say this session, which is we're just over an hour. For me, I've predominantly done all the talking. It does start to feel a bit uncomfortable when you're the person sat in front of a camera thinking, God, I've got people listening to me and I hope it's working for them. So if you do a longer live video, I would make sure you engage with people. So get them to talk through the chat and talk back to them, ask questions. Another good thing to do could be getting someone actually to join a session with you. So maybe get a customer or a team member. If you had a new book coming out and you've maybe let someone have a sneak peek of it, get them there to talk to them about it. So the pressure is off you as well. But yeah, generally with video, 3 minutes, if it's a normal kind of video, is the maximum of someone's attention span. But again, yeah, it can be as long as you need it to be, but just make sure that it's engaging and learn from it. If you do one, you'll get stats you'll see on the screen how many people are watching. So if you start to see that number dropping off, it probably means you've reached that point. So yeah, don't be worried about getting it right first time. Just learn as you go and adapt it. If the first one doesn't feel right, change it for the second one. Will future models cover Instagram? Yeah, they will. The next session, a little bit will go into it. It's more about selling techniques, but certainly 3 and 4, that's when we'll get real into how you can use different content types. But if you're keen, because I appreciate that's 2 months away, if you want stuff now, if you look at my Instagram profile, Stuart Murray Media, I post tips every day anyway. So if you want kind of ideas about Instagram, there's lots on there that you could pull kind of now if you want something a bit more immediately. But yeah, we will cover it. Looking forward to future modules. Good. For Facebook Lives on Facebook page, how long should it be? Pretty much again the same. With a group, you would expect the people to have a better attention span because they've chosen to be a member of that group. If someone is just a member of the public, is looking at your page, they might not be as committed to it. So they probably are going to have a shorter attention span. But that's where I would say you want to make it a bit more razzmatazz and exciting for those people that aren't as bought into whatever it is that you're talking to them about. But yeah, I'd say definitely for public, make it shorter and snappier because they won't have as long an attention span. But all of that stuff around engagement, that's in the 3rd session. We'll cover all of that around kind of what different types of content work well. Yeah, and I know I've skipped all over all of the really usefuls and the thank yous, but I'm glad they are, and thank you for the compliments. If there are any information, I'd say you'll get the slides through from Becky and Sue, and within there are my contact details. So if you want to email me, message me through Instagram, whatever, feel free. I'm more than happy to answer anything that I can. But yeah, that's everything. So back over to you, Becky and Sue.
Thank you, Stuart. Thank you so much. Wow, that's been a really insightful just over an hour that we've had with you. So thank you ever so much, and I'm really looking forward to the next 3 sessions for the rest of the season.
My pleasure.
And I think just judging by the comments, obviously lots, the attendees we've had today have got lots from it, and obviously we will be putting this in the group so that anyone that wasn't able to attend live will be able to watch back. So I'm sure they'll all get something from it as well. So thank you very much. Lots of food for thought in there, I think, and something that I really think is that kind of on your slides was it should complement your business and not consume your time, which I think you do get lost in social media, don't you? And you can waste a lot of time sometimes kind of perusing things and is this right, isn't this right? So I think that was quite a strong kind of point to take away. So thank you very much, Stuart.
Good, my pleasure.
And I look forward to the next one. Is there anything you wanted to add, Sue?
No, just same for me. Authenticity, trust, it's all the stuff we talk about all the time, but it's just reinforcing it. So I just thought this was such a lovely layer of reinforcement of what everyone's trying to achieve on their social media. So thank you, Stuart. It's excellent.
Great.
Excellent, excellent, lovely.
Look forward to number 2.
Yes. Well, thank you everybody who came along. Have a good day, and we'll catch up with you all on the group soon. Bye.
Great. Thanks
Bye,
everybody.
everybody.
See you next month. Bye.
Bye.